The sun burned low over the Texas plains, casting long, gold shadows across the land. The windmill creaked in the distance, its slow rhythm echoing through the empty fields. Rancher Cole Matthews wiped the sweat off his brow and squinted toward the horizon. It had been a long day of mending fences and chasing stray cattle, and all he wanted was the comfort of silence, something his land always gave him. But that evening, silence carried a strange sound, a faint cry, carried by the wind. Cole paused, his hand tightening around the fence post. It came again, soft, broken, desperate. At first, he thought it was a coyote caught in a snare, but as he followed the sound through the dry grass, his gut told him something was wrong. 100 yards ahead, near the old boundary fence, he saw movement, a figure struggling, tangled in ropes, trying to break free. As he got closer, his heart kicked harder in his chest. It was a woman. Her clothes were torn, her skin marked by dust and blood. She looked young, mid-20s maybe, and terrified beyond reason. Cole rushed forward, cutting the ropes with his knife. She collapsed into his arms, shaking, breathing like someone who'd run miles through hell. "Easy now," he said, his voice low and rough. "You're safe. I got you." But she flinched at his touch, eyes wide with fear. "Don't, please don't hurt me." Cole stepped back immediately, hands raised. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you, ma'am. You're on my land. Name's Cole Matthews, I'm a rancher. That's all." For a long moment, the only sound was her breathing and the wind stirring the grass. Finally, she nodded, eyes darting around the open land like she still expected someone to appear from the shadows. Cole looked behind him, no horses, no wagons, no footprints except his own. Whoever left her here had done it to make sure she wouldn't be found. He led her to his horse. "You can't stay out here. Let's get you to the house, you need water, rest, maybe a doctor." She hesitated. "They'll find me if I stay." Cole frowned. "Who's they?" She didn't answer, just stared at the setting sun. "The men who took me. They don't let anyone walk away." Cole's jaw tightened. The West had its share of devils, bounty hunters, bandits, and worse. He'd seen men do things to others for greed or revenge that left scars deeper than any bullet. He didn't ask more questions. Instead, he helped her onto the horse and rode back toward the ranch as the sky turned crimson behind them. When they reached his cabin, the lamps were already burning low. He led her inside, poured her a glass of water, and offered her some bread. She ate in silence, trembling with every sound outside. Cole didn't press her. He just sat at the table, watching the fire flicker in the hearth. After a while, she spoke. "My name's Clara. I was heading west with my brother. We were supposed to find work in Amarillo. But," her voice cracked, "we never made it. They stopped our wagon, 3 men. They said they needed supplies, but they wanted more than that. My brother tried to fight them. They shot him." Cole lowered his head. "I'm sorry. They left me there. Said I'd pay for his mistake." Her eyes went cold. "They were gonna sell me." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hiss of the fire. Cole felt something inside him burn, the same kind of anger he'd buried years ago, when his wife had died because he couldn't reach her in time. He'd sworn never to get involved in other people's trouble again. But this was different. This was wrong, and he couldn't look away. "You're safe here, Clara," he said finally. "I'll make sure of it." She looked up at him, hopeful, but still afraid. "You don't understand. They'll come. Then let 'em," he said, standing. "They'll find out this land ain't theirs to take." He went outside and looked out over the dark fields. The wind had turned colder, and the sound of coyotes echoed from the distance. Something in his gut told him that tonight would not pass quietly. He checked his rifle, loaded every round, and set it by the door. Inside, Clara lay on the couch, exhausted. Cole watched her for a moment, the way her hands clutched the blanket even in sleep, like she expected someone to tear it away. He turned toward the window and whispered, "No one's taking you again." The fire crackled, shadows moving across the walls like ghosts. Somewhere out there, men were coming, men who thought they could take what wasn't theirs. Cole Matthews had seen his share of blood, and he'd sworn to live in peace. But peace, he realized, sometimes had to be fought for. As the first howl of a coyote faded into the night, Cole blew out the lamp and sat by the door with his rifle. The stars above the prairie burned cold and bright, and in that silence, he made a promise, one that would change both their lives forever. The night came heavy and silent, like a dark blanket thrown across the plains. The moon climbed slow over the horizon, cold and pale, painting the ranch in silver light. Cole Matthews sat by the window, his rifle resting across his knees. Every creak of wood and whisper of wind kept his senses sharp. He hadn't slept, not with the fear that trouble might already be riding his way. Clara stirred on the couch, half dreaming, half trembling. She'd fallen asleep from exhaustion, but even in her rest, she seemed haunted. Cole stared at the fire's dying glow, the orange light fading into embers. He thought about her story: 3 men on the trail, a brother gunned down, a woman left to die in the dirt. It wasn't just cruelty. It was evil. And he'd seen evil before. Outside, the horse in the stable snorted and kicked once. Cole froze. He knew the sound: fear. Not from coyotes. Something closer. He moved slow, silent, and looked through the window. 3 shapes. Riders. Their silhouettes moved like shadows across the open field, the faint jingle of spurs carried by the wind. Cole's heart sank, but his hands were steady as he reached for the rifle. He'd hoped they wouldn't come so soon, but evil rarely waited for sunrise. He turned to Clara. "Wake up," he whispered. Her eyes snapped open. "They're here, aren't they?" He nodded once. "You stay quiet, you stay low. Don't move unless I tell you." She sat up, shaking. "You can't fight them alone." "I ain't got much choice." Cole slipped out the side door and moved toward the barn. The moonlight spilled over the field, bright enough to catch the dust rising from the riders' boots. They were close now, close enough that he could hear them talking, laughing. One voice stood out, cold and cruel. "Well, well. Looks like the rancher took our lost lamb in. How kind of him." Cole gritted his teeth. He recognized that tone, the kind of men who'd laugh over blood. He stepped behind a fence post and took aim. The first shot cracked through the night. A rider fell from his horse, hitting the dirt hard. The others scattered, shouting curses. Cole ducked, rolled to another cover point, and fired again. The second shot missed, splintering wood from the corral. "Rancher," a voice bellowed. "You're making a mistake. That woman's trouble ain't worth dying over." Cole shouted back, "Neither was her brother, but you killed him anyway." For a moment, there was silence, the kind that weighs heavy with rage. Then the sound of hooves thundered closer. They were coming in fast. Cole aimed for the nearest shadow and fired again. The bullet clipped the man's shoulder, spinning him from his saddle. 2 down. 1 left. The last rider slowed, dismounted, and called out into the night. "You got guts, old man. I'll give you that. But guts don't stop bullets." Cole stayed low, listening. He could hear boots crunching through the dry grass. The man was circling wide, looking for a flank. Cole's finger hovered near the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. Behind him, the cabin door creaked. Clara peeked out, holding a lantern. "Cole. Stay inside," he barked. Too late. The light gave them away. The men fired, the bullet shattering the glass in Clara's hand. She screamed and ducked down. Cole spun, fury boiling through him, and fired back. The shot found its mark, the rider dropped, his gun clattering to the ground. Then silence. Total, terrible silence. The ranch was still again, except for the sound of Clara's sobs. Cole lowered his rifle and walked to her. She was shaking, but alive. He checked her hand, small cuts, nothing deep. "It's over," he said softly. "They won't be coming back." But even as he said it, his chest felt hollow. Killing wasn't victory. It was a burden, one he knew all too well. He'd seen enough death for 10 lifetimes. But tonight, it had found him again. They buried the bodies by the river before dawn. Clara stood by, silent, as Cole marked the graves with rough stones. "You didn't have to do this for me," she whispered. "I didn't do it for you," he said quietly. I did it because it was right. Tears mixing with dust on her face. I don't even know how to thank you. You don't need to. Just, live. That'll be enough. They walked back to the house as the first light of morning stretched across the land. The ranch looked peaceful again, as if nothing had happened. But inside Cole, something had changed. He'd spent years hiding from the world, from the guilt of not saving the woman he once loved. Now, fate had given him another chance, a chance to make something right. Later that day, Clara helped him patch the holes in the fence and clean the blood from the porch. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her words were soft, like she was trying to find her place in this new life. "Where will you go now?" he asked her. "I don't know. Maybe I'll head north. Try to start over." "You could stay here," Cole said before he could stop himself. "Just till you're ready." She smiled faintly. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." That night, as the stars came out and the land grew quiet again, Cole sat on the porch, head tipped low, watching the horizon. He could still see the ghosts of what had happened, the flashes of gunfire, the look in the eyes of the men he'd buried. But there was something else now too, peace, fragile but real. Maybe redemption didn't come in church pews or prayers whispered into the wind. Maybe it came in moments like this, when a man chose to do good, no matter the cost. As the lantern burned low and the morning sun crept over the plains, bright and calm, as if the land itself wanted to forget the blood spilled under its sky. Cole Matthews stood by the riverbank, hat in hand, watching the water carry away the last traces of the night's violence. The air smelled of wet earth and smoke from the dying campfire. Behind him, the ranch stretched quiet and still, too quiet. Clara was inside the cabin, tending to her wounds, though he could tell her pain ran deeper than any bruise. Cole sighed and turned away from the water. He'd buried more than 3 men last night, he'd buried the peace he'd worked so hard to protect. The law would come. They always did. And when they did, they'd have questions no man could answer clean. By mid-morning, dust rose on the horizon. A rider, no, 2. Cole's stomach tightened. He walked to the porch, rifle hanging loose by his side. As they came closer, he recognized the badges glinting in the sunlight. U.S. Marshals. Cole Matthews, one of them called, pulling up his horse near the gate. "That's me," Cole answered. The lead marshal was a broad man with a gray beard and sharp eyes. "Heard there was trouble out here last night." "Gunfire. Dead men." Cole nodded slowly. "That's right. Care to explain?" Cole looked past them toward the open field. 3 men came here last night. They weren't looking for peace. They were hunting a woman. I stopped them. 2 died on the spot. 1 didn't make it till morning. The marshal's jaw tightened. "Names?" "I don't know, M. Didn't ask." 1 had a snake tattoo on his neck. Another carried a silver spur with an R carved into it. The marshal exchanged a look with his partner. "That'd be Reed's gang. Been wanted in 3 counties for robbery and murder. Guess you did us a favor." Cole said nothing. He didn't feel like a hero. Killing never sat right, even when it was justified. The marshal dismounted, walking toward him. "Still, law's law. You killed 3 men. I gotta take your statement. Might be we'll have to bring you until the circuit judge rides through." Cole nodded. "I understand." From inside the cabin, Clara stepped out, eyes wide. "No. He saved me. They would have killed me if he hadn't." The marshal held up a hand. "Miss, I believe you. But there's a way things gotta be done." Cole turned to her gently. "It's all right, Clara. Let me handle this." But as the marshals began their questions, something in her face changed, fear, not for herself this time, but for him. When they finished, they saddled up and told Cole they'd return by sundown with orders from the judge in town. He might have to stand trial, they said. Maybe it'd go easy, maybe it wouldn't. Out here, the line between justice and vengeance was as thin as desert dust. When the marshals rode away, Clara stepped closer. "You can't let them take you. You did nothing wrong." Cole looked at her with tired eyes. "I've been running from ghosts long enough. Maybe it's time I faced one. You don't owe them anything, she said. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But I owe it to myself, to do what's right, even when it costs me. That afternoon, he saddled his horse and packed his things. Clara followed him to the edge of the yard, where the tall grass shimmered under the sun. Where will you go? She asked. Town. I'll tell the judge what happened. If the law's fair, they'll understand. Her voice cracked. And if it's not? He paused, then looked back at her, a woman he'd found broken in the dust, who now stood tall and unafraid. Then you live. You take that strength of yours and build something good out of it. Don't let what happened here define you. She stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. You gave me my life back, Cole. Don't throw away yours. He reached out, gently brushing a tear from her cheek. Sometimes saving someone else is the only way a man saves himself. They stood in silence for a long moment, the wind brushing through the fields like a whisper of goodbye. Then Cole mounted his horse, tipped his hat, and rode toward the horizon. The ride to town was long and lonely. The land stretched endlessly, golden, wild, untamed. He thought of all the choices that had brought him here, the lives lost, the pain endured, and the one soul he'd managed to save. Maybe that was enough. When he reached the outskirts of Amarillo, the marshal met him at the gate. You sure about this, Matthews? You could have run. No one would have found you. Cole dismounted. I'm done running. He handed over his rifle and walked into town under the noon sun. The people turned to look, whispers followed, half in respect, half in suspicion. But Cole didn't flinch. He faced the courthouse steps like a man who'd already made peace with his fate. Inside, the judge listened quietly as Cole told the story, every detail, every truth. Clara's testimony came later that evening, her voice steady and clear. When it was done, the room fell silent. The judge finally spoke. Mr. Matthews, what you did may have broken the law. But it upheld something far greater, justice. You're free to go. The crowd murmured. Clara smiled through her tears. Cole bowed his head, grateful but weary. Outside, the sun was setting again, painting the sky in colors of fire and mercy. Cole stood by his horse, staring at the endless land that stretched before him. Clara joined him one last time. So, what now? She asked. He looked west, where the horizon swallowed the day. Now. I reckon I start living again. She nodded, and for the first time, her smile was real. Then maybe I'll do the same. He mounted his horse, gave her one last look, and rode off toward the fading light. The wind carried his hat brim low and his shadow long behind him. Somewhere out there, another sunset waited, another beginning. And as his figure disappeared into the distance, Clara whispered softly to the wind, "Thank you." The land was quiet again, but not empty. Somewhere in that silence, the spirit of redemption lived, strong, steady, and unbroken. Crickets sang. Cole glanced back at the window. Clara was there, safe and sleeping. For the first time in years, he smiled. Tomorrow would bring new troubles. But tonight, he'd done what was right.